In the far corner of the galaxy, the stars shined cold and silent over the shattered world of Valerian Prime. This was the capital planet of the Valeri Empire, once known for its beauty, power, and wisdom. But now the empire was weak, almost. Broken. The civil war had ended, but the wounds were deep. Cities were burned. Families were torn apart. Trust was gone. The people had one last hope, Princess Kelthari, the only living heir to the throne. Kelthari had survived an attack that killed her parents and nearly destroyed her mind. Her body was marked by battle, one eye scarred, her voice quiet and hard. But worse than the outside was the damage inside. The Valeri were a telepathic species. They needed mental and emotional bonds to feel whole. Leaders had to form strong connections with others to rule. Without bonding, a Valeri could not control their power or lead their people. Kelthari could bond with no one. Dozens had tried elders, friends, warriors, and even machines, but none could reach her mind. Every attempt ended in failure or pain. The palace healers called her condition mind-sealed. Others whispered that she was cursed. Some even said she should be replaced. But the empire had no other heir. In a desperate move, the Valeri High Council made a strange and bold decision. They would invite other species to attempt the bond. Maybe, just maybe, a foreign mind could connect where Valeri minds had failed. The idea caused a storm across the galaxy. The Valeri had always believed they were emotionally superior. Opening such a deep part of their minds to aliens was almost unthinkable. Many were angry. The council stood firm. And so an invitation went out. From Earth came Dr. Elias Monroe, human man known for his peaceful work with alien cultures. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a psychic. He was a linguist, an emotional researcher, someone who studied how minds and hearts communicated without words. When Elias arrived at Valerian Prime, he was given a warning. No human has ever bonded. With a Valeri, the elder said, if you fail, she may break, or you may. I understand, Elias said quietly. I'm not here to force anything. I'm just here to try. The first meeting between Elias and Kelthari happened in the silent chamber, a smooth white room where no machines or guards were allowed. Only 2 chairs stood in the center. Kelthari entered, her long coat dragging behind her like a shadow. Her expression was calm, but her silver eyes were sharp. She did not speak. Elias stood and gave a small bow. Hello, Princess. She said nothing. I brought something, he said, sitting slowly. From his bag, he pulled out a small round object. A music orb. He tapped it, and soft, simple earth music began to play an old piano song. Kelthari's head tilted slightly. Her eyes narrowed. I don't expect you to talk, Elias said gently. I just thought you might like to listen. They sat like that for 20 minutes. She didn't move. When the song ended, he nodded once and left the room. No pain, no pressure, no force. The next day he returned. This time, he brought a story cube, a device that played short visual tales. He played her a human story about a child lost in a forest who found her way home using starlight and kindness. Again, no words were shared. But Kelthari watched until the end. Every day, Elias came. He brought stories, songs, or just silence. Slowly, things began to change. One day, Kelthari blinked when a song ended. Another day, she moved her chair 2 inches closer. She never spoke. But she didn't leave, and most importantly, she never rejected him. Valeri guards noticed something else. After every session, Kelthari seemed calmer. Her violent dreams lessened. Her psychic flares, which once shook palace walls, grew weaker. Her thoughts were still locked, but her presence was warmer. Some council members were hopeful. Others were afraid. This bond is unnatural, one elder said. A human cannot be trusted with the mind of our princess. But they could not deny the truth. Something was happening. On the 13th day, Elias entered the chamber without a story or music. He sat quietly. Kelthari entered a minute later. They stared at each other for a long time. The silence was deep, but not empty. Elias closed his eyes, not trying to force a bond, but simply feeling. He let his thoughts flow, showing kindness, sadness, peace. Kelthari's breath caught. For a moment, just a second, their minds brushed. A spark of connection. Tiny thread. She stood up suddenly and left. Elias stayed behind, heart pounding. He knew what that spark meant. It wasn't full bonding. Not yet. Morning light spilled into the silent chamber like liquid gold. Dust floated in slow circles, and the room seemed softer than before. Dr. Elias Monroe stepped inside, carrying nothing but a small flask of water and a folded cloth, his heart still. Beat fast whenever he thought about the tiny spark of connection he had felt 2 days earlier. Today he wanted to protect that fragile thread, not pull too hard and break it. Across the hall, Princess Kelthari stood between two guards. They opened the door, then retreated, leaving her alone with the human. Her face was calm, but her shoulders no longer curved inward. The faintest silver glow, once just a flicker, now hovered around her skin. It was the first sign that her inner power was becoming steady. Elias greeted her with a quiet nod and sat down. He did not speak. Instead, he placed the folded cloth on the floor between their chairs and opened it. Inside lay smooth white stones, nothing special, just pieces he had gathered from the palace garden. One by one, he arranged them into a small circle. Leaving 2 stones in the center, Kelthari watched, curious. "This is a game for my home," Elias said gently. "We call it sun and shadow. No mind touch is needed, only patience." Nudged the first center stone toward her. "If you wish, move a stone from the edge inside the ring. That is all." Kelthari stared at the open circle. After a long pause, she knelt graceful. Silent hand slid a single stone forward. It clicked against his. Her silver eyes met his brown ones for half a heartbeat, and she sat back. Something warm bloomed in Ilias's chest. A real response. Not telepathic yet, but a sign of trust. They played in silence for almost an hour, stones sliding back and forth. Each move drew the ring tighter, the little sun in the center becoming more complete. When the circle finally closed, Kelthari placed the last stone and let out the faintest breath, a sigh of completion. Elias smiled. "Well played, princess." She didn't answer aloud, but a gentle wave of calm brushed his thoughts, soft as a feather. The bond thread stretched again. A little stronger, whispers of fear beyond the chamber walls. Palace corridors buzzed with debate. Counselor Sarek, a hardline traditionalist, paced before a group of senior advisors. "The human grows close," Sarek said, voice hushed but sharp. "If they complete the bond, his influence may twist our future." Yet Kelthari's nightmares have eased, another elder answered. "Can we deny what works?" Sarek's eyes narrowed. "There are safer ways, Valeri ways." He tapped a metal datapad. Inside was a hidden order, subtle sabotage that could scare the human into leaving without harming the princess. Or so he convinced himself. At the same time, news networks across the Orion expanse ran quiet headlines. Human researcher attempts impossible royal bond. Most aliens laughed. A few cheered. Earth's diplomats issued careful statements, neither hopeful nor doubtful, but curious. A gift of memories that afternoon, Elias brought something new. A slim projector disc. It held short, moving images, human childhood memories donated by volunteers back on Earth. Laughter over birthday candles. Friends learning to ride bicycles. A grandmother's hug. He placed the disc on a stand, and soft holograms appeared. Yuljan chased kites under blue skies. Father caught his daughter when she leapt from a low wall, both laughing. Kelthari sat very still. Her people shared memories through mind melds, not pictures. Yet the images stirred her. As the final scene faded, single, tear-bright and silvery slipped down her scarred cheek. Elias bowed his head, feeling the tear through their faint link like a drop of warm rain. "Memories can hurt," he whispered, "but they can also—" Kelthari's voice rose for the first time since the war, soft and rough. "Why do you show me their joy?"
Because
"Joy is real," Elias answered, eyes gentle, "and real things can be found again." Her lips trembled, as if tasting the shape of another word, but she remained silent. Still, The bond pulsed tiny. Bright, alive, the poisoned chalice that night, the palace hosted a small reception for foreign observers. Crystal dishes held rare fruits, and delicate glass cups contained viessence, a traditional Valeri tonic. Bitter for most species, it calmed the mind and strengthened faint psychic threads. Elias arrived late, invited only out of courtesy. Steward handed him a cup of glowing liquid. He almost declined. He disliked the tonic's taste, but politeness won. He lifted the drink to sip. In the crowd, a flicker of silver caught his eye. Kelthari had appeared on a high balcony, flanked by guards. For a heartbeat, her gaze locked on the cup, then on him. Her scarred eye glimmered. An invisible shockwave burst across the room. No sound, no fire, only pressure. Glass shattered. The cup in Ilias's hand exploded into dust before it reached his lips. Guests gasped. Guards rushed, weapons drawn. Elias's palm bled from tiny cuts, but he was alive. Confused voices filled the hall. Kelthari's psychic flare had destroyed every poisoned cup in the chamber, dozens of them. Only later would investigators discover a slow-acting nerve agent hidden in the tonic, enough to kill, or at least hospital confine the human and discredit the bond experiment. The shock of Kelthari's defense rippled through the empire. Some called it proof of her growing power. Others saw only danger. A thread becomes a strand in the medical wing. A healer patched Ilias's cuts with quick-sealing gel. Kelthari arrived, unannounced, and ordered everyone else away. Alone with him, she placed one hand over his bandaged palm. Her skin was cool. Her mind thrummed like distant thunder. Why did you risk drinking Valeri brew? The words were not spoken. They echoed gently inside Ilias's skull, her first true telepathic question to him. He answered aloud but kept his thoughts open, letting her read sincerity. I wanted to show trust. Trust can kill. True. He met her gaze steadily. But doubt can kill faster. Her shoulders relaxed, and the thin psychic thread thickened, brightening like a tiny strand of starlight. For the first time, Elias sensed not only her pain, but also her strength, an ocean held behind a cracked dam. Kelthari drew a slow breath. We continue tomorrow, she said, voice still husky, but clear. She turned to leave, then hesitated. Thank you, Elias. The silent words brushed his mind like silk. He watched her disappear down the corridor, his heart pounding with awe. Impossible bond was no longer theory. It was happening slow, delicate, but real. Storm clouds gathered that same night. Counselor Sarek convened a secret meeting. The sabotage had failed, yet he refused to stop. The human presses deeper. Sarek warned, we must act before the bond finishes and cannot be broken. His allies nodded, their fear mixing with pride. Plans formed, darker, riskier. Meanwhile, news of the thwarted poisoning leaked to public channels. Voices throughout the empire split even wider, some praising Kelthari's courageous flair, others blaming the human for putting her in danger. Dawn of resolves before sunrise. Elias climbed a palace tower that overlooked the war-scarred city. The twin moons glowed pale. He thought of Earth, of the children in the projector disc, of the princess fighting invisible battles every moment. A footstep sounded behind him. Kelthari arrived, wrapped in a plain gray cloak. No guards, no courtiers, just herself. They stood shoulder to shoulder, silent. Slowly, she raised a tentative, psychic bridge. Images flowed from her mind, burning halls, screams, the moment her parents fell. The terror that sealed her heart. Elias did not flinch. He offered his own memory. A hospital room where he lost his sister to illness, helpless and young. Pain. Met pain. Loss met. Lost between them, the bridge solidified into a gleaming strand, thin but unbroken. Kelthari whispered aloud, voice rough but steady. Your people call it humans are. Special, Elias gave a soft smile. Some joke that humans always do what others say is impossible. She turned, studying him with both bright and scarred eyes. Then let us do the impossible together. The first light of dawn touched the tower, painting them gold. Far below, the city still slept, unaware that hope had just grown a little stronger. and somewhere in the shadows, unseen enemies sharpened their next move. The bond between Princess Kelthari and Dr. Elias Monroe was growing stronger with each passing day. What had started as silence was now filled with soft words, calm thoughts, and shared memories. The princess still didn't smile, but her eyes were no longer cold. Soft light followed her like a faint halo, sign that her inner mind was healing. But not everyone was happy. In the shadows of the palace, Counselor Sarek met with his closest allies. His face was tight with anger. "The human is changing her," he said. "Our people will follow a princess who cannot even bond with her own kind." "She's bonding now," one of the other counselors replied carefully. "Even if it's with a human." Sarek slammed his fist on the table. "That's the problem. A Valeri ruler must be strong of mind, bonded to her people. This human, he clouds her judgment." The others stayed quiet. Some agreed, some did not. But fear was beginning to spread like smoke through the halls. Signs of strength, meanwhile. In the silent chamber, Kelthari and Elias sat across from each other once more. No games, no stories today. Bond was now strong enough for Kelthari to speak directly into Ilias's mind without effort. Her voice inside his thoughts was steady, like wind through tall grass. "You are not like the others," she told him. "I'm not sure if that's good or bad," Elias replied, smiling gently. "Good," she said. "You do not try to fix me. You just stay." A pause passed between them, full of quiet understanding. Then Kelthari did something unexpected. She reached out her hand. Elias blinked. He had never touched her before. He slowly placed his hand in hers. Their fingers met, and a pulse of soft energy moved through the bond. Not pain, not fear, just warmth. For the first time in many years, Kelthari felt safe. Dreams stormed that night. Kelthari slept deeply. For the first time, she allowed her mind to remain open during sleep, a dangerous thing for a telepath, especially one healing from trauma. Elias had asked to sit near her meditation chamber while she rested, just in case she needed him. Hours passed in silence, but then the air changed. A cold wind rushed through the room, though the walls were closed. Kelthari's body began to tremble, her face twisted in fear. Suddenly, Elias heard her thoughts not clearly, but like broken echoes, flames, screams. "Father, I'm alone. Alone." The bond flared, shaking the room. Furniture lifted. From the floor, lights dimmed. The princess's pain was too strong, flooding out like a storm. Elias rushed to her side, placing both hands on her arms. "Kelthari, you're not alone. I'm here." The storm paused. A breath, a blink. Then her mind latched onto his, anchoring like a ship in rough sea. Her thoughts slowly calmed, the power faded. Her body relaxed. When she opened her eyes, they were full of tears. "You stayed," she whispered aloud. "I told you," Elias said gently. "I'm not going anywhere." Public reaction word of the bond's progress spread beyond the palace. Valeri were amazed. They had never believed a human could share a mental bond with their kind, especially not a royal one. Young Valeri began sending messages to the palace, hopeful and curious. Some even said Kelthari had given them courage to face their own fears, but others were angry. "They are weakening our bloodline," shouted one elder during a live news panel. "If we allow humans into our deepest traditions, what are we?" Protests broke out in small colonies. Holograms of Kelthari and Elias were burned in the streets by a group calling themselves True-Blooded Flame. Yet, for every angry voice, another voice rose in support. "She is healing," a young Valeri woman said in an interview. "She's doing the impossible. Isn't that strength?" A dangerous offer back in the palace. Elias sat at his desk, writing a message to Earth when a soft knock came at the door. A servant stepped in, handed him a silver envelope, and quickly left. Elias opened it. The message inside was short. "Meet me in the East Garden. Midnight. Come alone. You must speak of what comes next." It was unsigned. No symbol, no name. He stared at it for a long time. At midnight, he arrived in the dark garden. The twin moons lit the stones with silver light. A figure stepped out from behind a tree. It was Counselor Sarek. "I come in peace," Sarek said. No tricks. Elias folded his arms, wary. You've done something. No one else could, Sarek said. You've bonded with the princess, and that scares people. I didn't do it to scare anyone, Elias replied. No, but it happened. Sarek's voice lowered. You have influence now. You could shape her future. You could rule beside her. Elias frowned. I have no interest in power. Then leave, Sarek said suddenly. Step away from her. Let us finish her healing. The Valeri way. I won't leave her alone, Elias said firmly. She trusted me when no one else did. Sarek's eyes narrowed. Then understand, there are those who will stop you. Even if it means removing you by force. Elias said nothing. He turned and walked away. Heart heavy, but sure of one thing. He was not backing down. Small victories the next day. Kelthry invited Elias to walk through the memory garden, a place where young Valeri once trained to build emotional strength. They walked in silence through glowing trees and soft wind. At the center, she paused. I was afraid to come here, she said quietly. Too many ghosts. You're here now, Elias replied. That's courage. Kelthry looked at him, voice low but strong. If they try to take you from me, I will fight them. He nodded, touched by her words. And I'll stay by your side till the end. The bond pulsed warmly between them, no longer a fragile thread but a growing strand of trust, pain, and hope. Far above them, storm clouds still gathered, but so did light. Because sometimes the smallest cracks let the stars. The bond between Princess Kelthry and Dr. Elias Monroe had become the talk of the galaxy. What began as silence had grown into something bright and strong. Now they could speak mind to mind. They shared thoughts, memories, and even emotions. But it wasn't only about healing. It was about change. And change always brings resistance. Some Valeri elders still refused to accept the bond. Others saw Kelthry as a new kind of leader, strong yet open. Broken once, but now rising. Elias didn't care about power or politics. He only cared about helping her heal. But the stronger the bond became, the more dangers surrounded them. The Knight of Kelthry had a decision to make. Every Valeri ruler, before taking full command, had to face the Night of Echoes. It was a sacred ritual one, where the heir must walk through their deepest memories, face their fears, and prove they could carry the weight of the crown. The ritual happened inside the mind chamber, a special place built with ancient psionic stone. Only the strongest could survive it. Some had gone in and never come out. It was dangerous, especially for someone like Kelthry, who had been scarred so deeply. The council said she wasn't ready, but Kelthry was tired of waiting. If I fear my own past, she said, how can I lead anyone into the future? Elias wanted to stop her, but he saw something clear in her eyes. She wasn't just trying to survive anymore. She wanted to live. I'll be there, Elias said, as far as I'm allowed to go. No, Kelthry replied. You're coming inside with me. The elders were shocked. The chamber is for Valeri minds only. Its presence could damage the process. Kelthry stood tall. Then let the process change. He is my bond partner. Where I go, he goes. There was silence. Then the council agreed, though not with open hearts. Inside the stormed mind chamber opened with a low hum. Elias and Kelthry stepped inside, as the door closed behind them, sealing them in darkness. At first there was nothing, just black air and quiet. Then Kelthry's memories appeared all around them, bright, sharp, and full of pain. The day her parents died, the screams of the palace under attack, feeling of fire on her skin, the voice of her younger self. Crying alone in the rubble, Elias could feel it all. The bond made it real for him too. It was like walking through her soul. Kelthry fell to her knees. The voices in her head grew louder, accusing, angry, filled with guilt. You couldn't save them. You're broken. You are not fit to rule. Elias ran to her, grabbing her hands. Kelthry, he said, look at me. These voices are not the truth. They are mine, she whispered. I cannot escape them. You don't have to escape. You only have to face them with me. She looked up. Her eyes glowed softly in the dark. The storm inside her mind grew wild, but so did the light from their bond. Elias shared his own memory, his little sister in the hospital, smiling before she passed away. He had blamed himself for years. The guilt nearly broke him, but I lived, he said. I lived, and I carry her love with me, not just her loss. Kelthry's lips trembled. Her younger self, the scared, wounded version, stood in front of her, crying. Kelthry reached out. The child stepped forward and melted into her chest. The storm vanished. The chamber became silent once. Again, a new flame when the chamber door opened. Kelthry and Elias stepped out slowly. She did not fall. She did not cry. She walked with power. The council watched in awe. Her aura glowed bright silver, stronger than it had been in years. Her voice was calm and royal. The echoes no longer control me, she said. I am ready. The bond between her and Elias now shimmered in the air, visible to the trained eye. Their minds had become linked in a way no one had thought possible. It was deep, balanced, alive. Some elders still looked unsure, but others bowed their heads in respect, enemies in the dark far away from the celebration. Counselor Sarek stood in a shadowed room, watching the ritual replay on a small holoscreen. She completed it, he muttered. With a human, he turned to a hidden figure behind him. The old ways are dying. The figure said nothing. It handed him a small metal box. Inside was a sharp, glowing, crystalline forbidden weapon used only during war. It is time, Sarek whispered. If we cannot stop the bond, we will end it. Between two worlds later that night, Elias and Kelthry stood on the balcony of the royal tower. The stars above them twinkled like dust on black velvet. Do you feel different? Elias asked. Kelthry nodded. Yes, lighter and heavier at the same time. You did something incredible, Elias said. You faced your past. You won. Kelthry turned to him, not alone. They stood in silence, the wind gently blowing through her dark hair. Kelthry looked at the stars. My people call humans wild, uncontrolled, emotional. We are, Elias said with a small smile. She looked at him again. But maybe that's what we needed. For the first time since the war, Kelthry smiled. To be continued. ... In the dark corners of the empire, enemies were planning their next move. But inside the palace, something brighter had begun to burn. Not just a bond. The bond between Princess Kelthry and Dr. Elias Monroe had grown stronger than anyone expected. She had survived the Night of Echoes, proved her strength, and now the people began to believe in her again. Her eyes were brighter, her voice steady, and her mind more focused. Across the Valeri worlds, some called her the Empress of Light. They saw her not just as a leader, but as a symbol of healing and change. But not everyone celebrated. In the shadows of the city, Counselor Sarek and his secret followers prepared their next move. The hidden plot in an underground chamber, Sarek stood before a group of cloaked figures. His voice was low, but sharp like a blade. She is bonded with the human completely, he said. And now she speaks of peace, of joining minds with other species. This is not the Valeri way. Of the others spoke. What do we do, Counselor? Sarek placed a small device on the table. Inside was a glowing blue crystal, the same forbidden energy from the war. We removed the human, quietly, without a trace. You want to kill him? Someone asked. No, Sarek said coldly. I want to break the bond. Without him, she will fall into silence again. She will be unfit to lead. They all nodded slowly. The plan had begun. Unrest in the streets, meanwhile. In the outer districts of the capital, protests had begun. Some citizens marched with signs showing Elias and Kelthry standing together. Others shouted against their union, keep the mind pure. No human minds in our royal line. She is not one of us anymore. Elias watched the protests from a palace balcony. His face was calm, but his heart was heavy. Kelthry stood beside him. They fear what they don't understand, she said. Elias turned to her. Do you ever regret bonding with me? She looked into his eyes. Never. You didn't change. Who I am? You helped me find it, he smiled. Then we keep moving forward. The attack that night, Elias returned to his study to write a message to Earth's Cultural Council. He never got the chance to finish. The lights flickered. A strange coldness filled the air. Turned down and saw a figure in black armor standing in the corner. The intruder wore a mask and held a device glowing with energy. Before Elias could speak, the figure threw the device to the ground. It exploded in a flash of blue light. Elias screamed as his mind was hit by a sudden wave of pain. Not physical pain, but something deeper. The bond. It was being attacked. The figure vanished just as guards burst in. Elias fell to the floor. Unconscious, the breaking Kelthari awoke in her chamber, gasping for breath. Her heart raced. She clutched her chest. The bond, her connection to Elias, was fading. She reached out with her mind. Elias, can you hear me? No answer. Fear hit her like a storm. She rushed through the palace, ignoring guards and elders. When she reached the medical wing, Elias lay on a bed, pale and still. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes were closed. The healers surrounded him. Confused, we don't understand what happened, one said. His brain is unharmed, but his mind is empty, disconnected. Kelthari stepped forward. Her hands shook. Let me try. She placed her hands on his forehead and closed. Her eyes. She searched for the bond, but it was nearly gone, like a candle in the wind. Elias, please, don't go. For a moment, she felt nothing. Then faintly a whisper in her thoughts. Pale tears streamed down her face. The bond wasn't fully broken, just weakened. He was still there, but barely. A message in the dust later, Kelthari sat in the silent chamber alone, trying to think. Someone had attacked Elias not to kill him, but to destroy the bond. It was a message, a warning. She turned on a small memory screen and watched footage from the attack. The blue light. The strange energy. It was from Forbidden Crystal Tech, banned after the war. Only a few knew how to use it. One of them was Counselor Sarek. Kelthari stood up. Eyes burned with quiet fire. It's time to end this, she said. The confrontation, Corettle entered the council hall dressed in full royal robes. Her crown shimmered with silver light, and her voice echoed through the chamber. One of you used forbidden energy to attack my bond partner. Whispers filled the room. I know who it was, she said. But I will give you one chance to speak. Silence, then Counselor Sarek stepped forward, calm and proud. I did it, he said. And I would do it again. Gasps followed. The guards moved, but Kelthari raised a hand. Why? Sarek's face twisted. Because you are leading us into weakness. You let a human into your mind. You call it peace. I call it surrender. Kelthari walked slowly toward him. You think strength is silence? You think healing is weakness? You are wrong. She stopped just a few steps away from him. I faced the fire of my past. I survived, and I chose to bond with someone who saw me, not my scars, not my title. Me. Her voice grew stronger. You attacked the bond, but you didn't break it. You couldn't. She turned to the council. The Valerie must change, or we will destroy ourselves. The elders looked at each other. Then slowly, one by one, they stood in support. Sarek was removed from the council and arrested. The old ways had taken a blow. The awakening later. Kelthari returned to Elias's side. She took his hand and whispered softly, they tried to break us, but we are still here. Suddenly Elias's fingers twitched. His lips moved. Water. Please. Kelthari laughed softly, wiping tears from her cheeks. You scared me? No. He opened his eyes slowly. Missed. I never left, she said, as the bond slowly rebuilt itself. Glowing gently between them, Kelthari knew the fight wasn't over. But they had survived the worst of it together. The shadows had tried to break them. But the palace was quiet the next morning. Soft wind blew across the high towers. Princess Kelthari stood on the edge of the royal balcony, her eyes fixed on the sunrise. A new day was beginning. But today was not like the others. Today Valeri Council would vote on her future. Would she become empress? Or would fear and tradition stop her once again? Inside the palace, preparations were being made for the Grand Council gathering. Elders arrived in long robes. Soldiers stood guard in polished armor. Across the galaxy, people waited to hear the result. Everyone knew this vote was different, because never before had a Valeri heir bonded with a human. The bond restored in the medical wing, Dr. Elias Monroe sat up for the first time in days. He was still tired, but his smile had returned. His bond with Kelthary was weak, but alive. The attack had not destroyed it. "I feel like I was hit by a starship," he joked to the healer. "You're lucky," the healer said. "If her bond hadn't pulled you back, you might not have returned at all." Elias closed his eyes. He remembered the moment her voice calling him through the darkness, like a light in deep space. He stood slowly. "She needs me. I have to be there." The healer hesitated, then nodded. "Go, but be careful." Council votes. Kelthary entered the great hall in silence. The stone floor echoed under her feet. She wore no crown, only a simple white robe with the silver symbol of the royal line on her chest. She stood in the center of the circle as the council. Elders took their seats. Councillor Varen, now head of the council after Sarek's arrest, spoke first. "Princess Kelthary," he said, "you have completed the Night of Echoes. You have restored your psychic strength. You've bonded with a human." The room buzzed quietly. Varen continued, "This bond is not traditional. It is not expected, but it is real. Today we decide whether you will take the throne." Vote began. Each counselor stepped forward to place a glowing stone blue for yes, red for no, into a clear bowl. Kelthary waited, calm but alert. Her heart beat hard in her chest, but she didn't show fear. Then the last stone was dropped. The bowl was lifted, 10 blue stones. For red, the hall was silent for a breath. Then Varen spoke the words, "By the council's vote, you are now Empress of the Valeri." The offer refused cheers rose from the crowd outside. Lights flashed in the sky. Music began to play in the streets, but inside, Varen wasn't done. "There's one more matter," he said. "Some members of the council believe that, now you are Empress, the human bond should be dissolved." Kelthary's expression turned cold. "It is not a disease," she said. "It is not a mistake." Varen raised a hand. "We only suggest that for tradition, you release him. You may rule with a clear mind." The chamber door opened. Elias entered, walking slowly but proudly. He stopped beside Kelthary and bowed his head. "I never wanted power," he said, "only to help her heal. If you ask me to leave, I will." Kelthary looked at him, then at the council. "No," she said, "I will not dissolve the bond." Elias stays, not as ruler, not as consort, but as something new. She turned to Elias. "Will you accept the role of advisor consort?" A voice beside mine, without command but with trust. Elias smiled. "I would be honored." Varen looked around the room. No one objected. So it was done. A human now stood at the side of a Valeri Empress. Voices of the galaxy news of the final vote spread across star systems on Earth. People cheered. Students at Elias's old university lit candles and sent messages of joy through the internet. Across the Valeri Empire, reactions were mixed. Some were angry, some were confused, but many were hopeful. "If a broken princess can rise with a human by her side," said one young Valeri poet, "then perhaps we can all rise together." Trade talks between species began to open. Schools began to allow mixed teachings of Valeri and human culture. Walls were not falling, but they were cracking, and light was beginning to shine through. One last walk that evening. Kelthary and Elias walked through the garden under the stars. "No guards?" Elias asked, surprised. "Not tonight," Kelthary said. "Tonight we walk as people, not as symbols." They walked in silence for a while, breathing in the cool night air. Elias looked at her and said, "You were never broken, you know." She smiled faintly. "I thought I was." "You were hurt," he said. But broken things can still become beautiful again. She turned to him. I didn't become anything new. I just remembered who I was. They sat on a stone bench. Beneath a glowing tree, Kelthry looked up at the stars. They called it impossible. Elias followed her gaze. And yet, here we are. The beginning of something greater in the days that followed, Kelthry took the throne fully. She led with strength and compassion. She listened more than she spoke. She reached out to other species with honest words. Elias worked beside her, helping translate between minds, between cultures, and sometimes between hearts. Their bond became a symbol, not just of unity, but of possibility. No one had thought it could happen, but it had. Not through power, not through war, but through understanding, through patience, through love, not romantic, but deeper. The love of minds reaching across stars and scars, holding each other steady, and in the hearts of two very different beings, something beautiful